Welcome to Order Militaris Radio TV, we're lifelong Catholics. And what we do is all for free and for love of Jesus Christ and for our Holy Mother, the Church. We'll defend our Holy Mother, the Church. Today we're going to be talking about the spy master for Elizabeth I of England and what he did to give the Church many saints and martyrs. For Brother Alexis Bonanno.
Thank you, AJ, for having me on Ordo Militaris Radio TV. It's always a pleasure to be on this new initiative, breaking ground in Catholic media. And we've done a lot of historical programs. We haven't gone so far back in history, so this will be one of the first. We're talking about the reign of Queen Elizabeth I. And, and Walsingham, one of the most evil men of history. And people wonder how the Protestants got such a hand over us Catholics and destroyed the faith in England. Well, this is one of the key individuals behind it. So, AJ, for those who aren't so up on their English history, who was Queen Elizabeth and why was she so crucial in establishing Protestantism in England?
Yeah. She was born in Greenwich Palace on September 7th, 1533. She was the second child of Henry VIII of England, born in wedlock to survive infancy. Her mother was Henry's second wife, Anne Boleyn.
I should state correctly, she was born in adultery because his second wife wasn't his second wife, his first wife was still alive. But that's Englishly written history. English. And when did she become queen, and what was her agenda as queen?
So she became queen at the age of 25 and declared her intentions to her council and other peers who had come to Hatfield to swear allegiance. The speech contains the first record of her adoption of medieval political theology of the sovereign's two bodies, the body natural and body politic. She says, "My lords, the law of nature moves me to sorrow for my sister. The burden that has fallen upon me makes me amazed, yet considering I am God's creature, ordained to obey his appointment, I will thereto yield, desiring from the bottom of my heart that I may have assistance of his grace to be the minister of his heavenly will in this office, now committed to me, and as I am but one body naturally considered, though by his permission, a body politic to govern, so shall I desire you all to be assistant to me, that I with my ruling and you with your service make a good account to Almighty God and leave some comfort to our posterity on earth. I mean to direct all my actions by good advice and counsel." But yeah.
Yes, she was a Protestant fanatic and had Catholics murdered all across England. So the God she's talking about there isn't Jesus Christ, although she perhaps pretended it was in her lifetime. So she was ruthless. She never married. She courted a lot of men, and she had a lot of male courters. And one of the most influential was her spy master. Most people didn't even think there was such a thing as spies back then. But who was he, AJ? Where was he born? What kind of training did he have?
Yeah. Francis Walsingham was born around 1532, probably at Footscray near Chislehurst in Kent. The only son of William Walsingham, a successful and well-connected London lawyer who served as a member of the commission appointed to investigate the estates of Cardinal Thomas Wolsey in 1530. William's elder brother was Sir Edmund Walsingham, the Lieutenant of the Tower of London. Francis's mother was Joyce Denny, a daughter of the courtier Sir Edmund Denny of Cheshunt in Hertfordshire, and a sister of the courtier Sir Anthony Denny, the principal gentleman of the Privy Chamber to King Henry VIII. After the death of her first husband, she married the courtier Sir John Carey in 1538. Carey's brother William was the husband of Mary Boleyn, the elder sister of Anne Boleyn, the second wife of King Henry VIII.
Okay, so this family was connected, and they were courtier. A courtier is a person who makes his career serving the king, and you might call them lobbyists or parasites, or you can see how they were all marrying in with one another and having relations with one another. So you can see how that here's where monarchy is beginning to lose its power over to the courtiers, who are the class of themselves. So where did he go to school? What was his profession?
So he um, first started at King's College, Cambridge, in 1548 with many other Protestants. But as an undergraduate of so, high social status, did not sit for a degree. From 1550 to or 1551, he traveled in continental Europe, returning to England by 1552 to enroll at Gray's Inn, one of the qualifying bodies for English lawyers. Now, what they don't have here is he went to University of Padua, and he's listed among their alumni. He
Okay.
studied and got a degree in natural sciences.
Okay, and why was he going to Italy and Padua, and what years was that?
Let's see here. Let's get back to this thing here. Let's find out. Let's get this thing back. So then, yeah, right here. About 1555,
Okay, under the reign of
Edward the Sixth.
mhm. Padua was a notorious school for anti-clericalism. Marsilius of Padua, is the um, author that inspired Machiavelli and a lot of the anti-Catholic treatises used in the Reformation to destroy the church. And he got a lot of his anti-Catholic doctrine from Greek writers. So it doesn't surprise me with the Padua. That'd be like going to Yale today.
Mhm.
So when did he, what was his career then? How did he end up to be Secretary of State of Queen Elizabeth?
So by 1560, with Elizabeth as queen, he was back in England. In 1562, was returned as member of Parliament for the Learned Regis. That same year, he married a widow, Anne Cartel, but she died 2 years later, leaving him without children. In 1566, he married the widow of Sir Richard Wolseley, and by her he had a daughter, Frances. She later married Sir Philip Sidney, and after his death, Robert de Vrew, second Earl of Essex. And when he was at age of 36, Francis came to the attention of Elizabeth's first minister, William Cecil, who offered him a position at court. He took charge of the small network of secret agents Cecil had established, and so started 22 years of loyal and unswerving service to the Queen. Elizabeth nicknamed him her Moor because of his swarthy complexion and habitual black clothing.
Hmm. Okay, so spy master. What kind of a spy master? What was his spy network like? What was he information he was gathering? How did he use it? This is very interesting.
So he was sent to Paris as an ambassador in 1570. He would have been equivalent to the foreign secretary and head of what is MI5 and MI6. So he was sent to Paris, where he was involved in negotiations for several treaties. He was in the city when the Huguenots were murdered in the massacre of St. Bartholomew in 24th August 1572, which reinforced his hatred of foreign Catholic regimes.
The Huguenots were not massacred by the crown. They were massacred by our rival Catholic faction.
So, in 1573, he was recalled from Paris and appointed Secretary of State, a post he held until his death.
Okay, so do we know anything about the size of his spy network and where he had his spies posted?
Yeah. To this end, he expanded his network of spies to more than 50 agents, many of them paid out of his own pocket. He soon had agents in the courts of France, Spain, the Low Countries, Germany, the United Provinces, and even Turkey, and they forgot one, Russia. They bought a piece of land and property right across from the Kremlin under when Ivan the Terrible was the first Tsar of Russia.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And what kind of information was he gathering?
He was gathering about, if Spain's going to invade England or France going to invade England or the Papal States are going to invade England or the Pope's going to invade England.
Any kind of possible threat. Now, did he also have spies working in England? And who were some of the people he was spying on?
So, yeah, he had spies within the country spying on Catholics, especially where the Catholics were hiding priests in the priest holes and
Under
uh,
Elizabeth, was it legal to be a Catholic priest in England, or was it a crime?
it was a crime.
And what was the punishment?
Death.
So, was Walsingham involved in rounding up Catholics and having them put to death?
Yep.
And do we know how many?
So 48 Catholic priests and 20 Catholic laymen.
This guy was a monster. And do we know any of their names specifically?
Well, we got the Tyburn Martyrs. We have Saint Edmund Campion. Those pretty much the only famous ones we know of.
And how was it that he caught them? We know his basic methods of operation.
Yeah, so let me get that. Let's see. Find out. There we go. So this is what they use to pretty much send messages and stuff on their coded letters. Intelligence work also involved learning how to break different codes used by plotters in correspondence. Often letters of the alphabet were shuffled in certain sequence, and once the key was worked out, the message could be read and understood. Alternatively, individual letters could be substituted with numbers, symbols, and the sign of the zodiac. But spies had to learn not only how to decipher code, but also how to write it themselves. This was frustrating and time-consuming work, and it paid off only by the satisfaction of finally cracking difficult codes. Some codes they used were by placing a sheet of paper punched with holes over the top of so that just the relevant letters making up of a message could be read. Success therefore depended on calculating the exact sequence of thousands of holes. And also another one was practice of conveying information in invisible ink, written in milk or lemon juice. The secret message could be read as the page was warmed over a candle. And and so he knew this was going to be critical, and so he established his own school to teach people as an agent how to be spies.
Now, did he have it? Was he instrumental in having Mary Queen of Scots accused of high treason and
Yeah.
executed?
Late in 1585, a trainee priest named Gilbert Guilford was intercepted coming from France through the port of Rye. He was taken to Walsingham, who learned that Guilford was to act as the messenger between Mary and her supporters in the continent. Walsingham turned Guilford and persuaded him to work for the government. He was to tell Mary that a system for smuggling letters and papers between her and Europe had been set up. In fact, the spy master himself constructed this route so that all correspondence passed through his hands before it crossed the channel. Walsingham's secretary, Thomas Phelps, was an expert codebreaker, so all Mary's communications were monitored. In May 1586, Mary sent two letters, one to the Spanish ambassador Mendoza, giving her support to an invasion of England. The other was to a supporter, Charles Paget, asking him to remind Philip of Spain of the urgency for invasion. Both passed through Walsingham's hands. The following month, Sir Anthony Babington and a Catholic priest, John Ballard, were heard discussing the proposed Spanish invasion and the plot to murder Elizabeth.
This guy was really devious, and this should be a warning to all us Catholics and Christians around the world. There are enemies, they're extremely devious people, and they use lie upon lie and treachery upon treachery just so that they can create some excuse or pretext to put you to death.
Yeah,
So,
so
with specifically with Mary, how then did they get something on her that they used?
yeah. All this evidence did not implicate Mary directly in the plot against Elizabeth. On, sep- on 17 July, Walsingham received what he had been waiting for, a letter in reply to one of Babington's written by Mary and giving her approval to the plot to murder the Queen. Walsingham moved quickly. Ballard and Babington were arrested and placed in the Tower of London. Others implicated in the plot were rapidly placed under lock and key. On 13 September, the conspirators were tried and condemned, and a week later, Babington, Ballard, and the five others were dragged on hurdles to St. Giles Field, Holborn, where in front of a large crowd they were hanged, drawn, and quartered.
And I want to point out that was not a crime or immoral for Mary Queen of Scots to authorize the execution of Elizabeth, because Elizabeth was a usurper and a heretic, and they had to get authorization of their queen to act. And since Mary was the rightful queen of England, she has and Scotland, she had authority to at least consent to that. So then
So,
then what did they do to arrest Queen Mary?
yeah, despite Walsingham's proof, Elizabeth was still reluctant to take action against Mary. In October, both houses of Parliament demanded Mary's head, but Mary would not sign. She even pleaded that some way be found to deal with Mary without the need for execution.
You
Both
mean Elizabeth?
Cecil, by now Lord Burghley, and Walsingham were determined that this should not happen. Together with the support of the Council of State, they brought constant pressure on the Queen until she eventually signed the warrant on February 1st, 1587. Her intention seemed to have been to hold the signed warrant as a threat against Mary, but Walsingham would have none of it. At 8 o'clock on the morning of Wednesday, 8th of February, 1587, Mary, Queen of Scots, was executed in the great hall of the Forthenheim Castle. On Walsingham's order, the body was stripped of all clothing, which was burned so that no relic survived, and encased in lead.
Why was he thought he made her? He knew had made her a martyr, and so he wanted all the relics destroyed. But to strip the body of the queen is the most vile piece of knavery. This is clearly someone who is burning in the deepest pit of hell. Um, Other than the regicide of Queen Mary, what did he do in the rest of his life, and what end did he have?
So, when told of the execution, Elizabeth was furious. Both Walsingham and Cecil were in extreme danger from their monarch's temper. She refused to see them, and for a while Cecil dared not go to court. Walsingham, meanwhile, was hard at work preparing for an inevitable invasion by Spain, an invasion that, through the skill of English seamen and the luck of the weather, The other came. Cecil acknowledged the debt England owed this worker behind the scenes when he said, "You have fought more with your pen than many here in our English navy with their enemies." Elizabeth was notoriously sparing with honors for her public servants. Only one, William Cecil, received a peerage. Francis Walsingham was knighted in 1577 and received honorary appointment of Chancellor of the Order of the Garter and Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster. When he died on 6th April 1590, the news was carried to Philip II of Spain via a letter from one of his agents in England. The agent wrote, "Secretary Walsingham has just expired," at which there was much sorrow. Philip commented in the margins of the letter, "There, yes, but it is good news here."
So do we know what he died of?
Let me see here. Let's go back to this Wikipedia here. Da, 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 da. Walsingham complained of ill health, often retired to his country estate for periods of recuperation. This is right after he had Mary executed, and all of a sudden his health took a turn for the worse.
Hmm.
He complained of sundry cornosis, pains in his head, stomach, and back, and difficulty in passing urine, and also suggested diagnoses of included cancer, kidney stones, urinary infection, and diabetes. He died on April 6, 1590, at his house in Season Lane. Historian William Carden wrote that Walsingham died from a camosity growing intratestium tunica, or testicular cancer.
Testicular cancer.
But
That's
then
not, yes.
that's just one part of God's justice. He was buried privately in a simple ceremony at 10 p.m. on the following day, beside his son-in-law in Old St. Paul's Cathedral. The grave and monument were destroyed in the Great Fire of London in 1666. His name appears on a modern monument in the crypt listing the important graves lost.
So his mortal remains were reduced to dust. God wiped his memory off the face of the earth.
Mm-hmm.
So we have rarely done a program on the persecutors of the church directly, and this is one of the very earliest ones. And if you meet any Catholic from the United Kingdom who knows their history, all you have to do is mention Walsingham, and they'll give you an earful. So thank you, AJ, for having me on this program about Elizabeth Spy Master. It's been very informative.
Yep. This is Order Militaris Radio TV signing off. Deus Volt.
Day as well.